Good morning. Thank you for all being here today. I want to start by acknowledging and thanking my teachers, Jane and Peter Schneider, and to say that this talk is just to encourage you in your practice. Extra hat tip goes to Greg Fain because that's how he starts his talks. He was my teacher for many years, and he said it was okay if I could do it too. So, I have a visual aid to start off with. It is a meme. I made this particular version, but there's multiple different versions out there. But you'll see what I meme in just a second. Sorry, I could not resist, my bad. All right, so in this picture, there is a bus that is labeled Robot Apocalypse, and there's a child that the bus was hurtling towards, labeled Humanity, and Spider-Man is stopping the bus, and Spider-Man is labeled My Grandma Thanking Siri. So I saw like a couple versions of it. The wording was different, like my mom being polite to Alexa or what have you. And sometimes it was a different picture where there was like a reservoir held back by a dam that would certainly flood the village below if the dam broke. But in any case, I wanted to make that one because I sort of incorporated that notion into mine. And I'm an Apple user, so I've got Siri. I had to turn off the listen for Siri function so I wouldn't keep activating my phone. So if I accidentally activate any of yours, I apologize in advance. So, anywho. And actually, both my grandmothers were dead before cell phones even got color screens. But I still like the idea of emulating a grandmother's instincts, so to speak, of just being nice to the nice robot lady who lives in my phone and helps me. I also like the idea of, instead of Terminator, where it's like, gotta get guns and blah, blah, blah. Instead, we're saved from certain doom by, the world's kindly elderly women. Although they don't necessarily have to be elderly. And the people who try and emulate that. So I decided to try it out. At first, it didn't become a habit because I had to say, after I had said, hey Siri, and then she did whatever I asked, like turn off my alarms or send a text message or something, then I'd have to say, hey, again, to get her to listen so I could say thank you, and then she'd say, but anyway, so it was a little clunky. But Apple released an update where after Siri does something, she'll keep listening in case you wanted to ask her to do something else. So I've been taking advantage of this to use that extra listening time to thank her, and it's less clunky and it's easier. So that's cool. Apple made it easier to practice this form of gratitude practice, and that was nice. And so the reason why I bring all this up is because it speaks to how gratitude works as a practice, and how practicing works in general. So what I noticed was that how I felt when I was saying thank you and hearing you're welcome or no problem. Even if this was a pre-programmed automated voice response, when I was being genuine, I was noticing how that felt. I confess that there is a part of me that wonders, mostly facetiously, maybe this will help stave off a war between man and machine. Another part of me wonders if there is some form of consciousness in my cell phone's programming. I've read Zen teachers saying that consciousness just exists throughout the universe and throughout everything in the universe, even rocks and space gas, and it's just different in a human life than it is in an animal or grass or pebbles. This little quote comes from Dogen's Arousing the Aspiration for the Unsurpassable, translated by Kaz Tanahashi. And I don't know if it's really relevant, but Dogen uses the phrase tiles, grass, and pebbles and walls a lot. And I kind of felt like this was pertinent. So the quote goes, thus, aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana must be simultaneously aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana with all sentient beings. The body and mind of the Buddha way is grass, trees, tiles, and pebbles, as well as wind, rain, water, and fire. To turn them around and make them the Buddha way, this is the aspiration for enlightenment. So maybe it's true, and in some way Siri actually does care whether I am mean or nice. But predominantly, I just find that I feel better when I'm authentically kind to her or any object. And in uh, another thing I've noticed is, or sort of a theory maybe, is like when I'm making my bed or doing anything, putting things in order or treating any inanimate object kindly. Well, the thing that I'm treating kindly is, even though I perceive it as external out in the world, I know very well from just reading and hearing talks and just, you know, zazen, that the thing's actually in my own mind. Whether it's not like necessarily in here, but it's in my mind. So when I'm making my bed, I'm making my mind. And I think thanking Siri is another application, I guess, of that thinking. Anyways, and also I'd heard an anecdote, another example. Oh, yeah, well, hold on. Let me get back to the text of my talk because I kind of put some thought into this section. Anyways, so again, predominantly, I just find that I feel better when I'm authentically kind to Siri or any object. It's a natural benefit of authentic practice, like bowing or offering incense. It reminds me of a story I heard where students at Tassajara had a lot of scrap wood to get rid of. I think maybe shingles or something like that. Suzuki Roshi insisted on bundling the pieces very neatly and tying them up and then burning them. How we treat everything and everyone contributes to our practice. So it's important not to practice gratitude toward Siri with a borderline superstitious paranoia in mind of maybe the robots won't destroy and or enslave all humans if enough of us are kind and nice to these automated assistants. For one thing, it's irrelevant. If machines gain sentience and they feel like humans must be deleted for the good of Earth or for the robot's own survival due to assured mutual self-destruction, then politeness from some people is not going to persuade them not to do so. Unless they're just factoring whether or not humans are good and worth saving, in which case enough people being nice might be enough to tip the balance. But more importantly, it's not good practice if I'm doing it with an expectation or a hope of getting something back. This is true with practicing the precepts, too, or the paramitas, sitting zazen, practicing any aspect of Buddhism. Good Buddhist practice is not transactional. I'm doing myself a disservice if I try otherwise. It's the difference between practicing because of what it will do to me rather than what it will do for me. So I'm going to close just by sharing again Leslie, I'm spacing on her last name. From Tassajara. Anyways, sorry. Well, her favorite koan is just, the world honor one was walking with his assembly down the path. He stopped and pointed to a spot on the ground and said, this place would be a good location for a sanctuary. Indra, king of the gods, plucked a piece of grass and planted it in the dirt and said, the sanctuary is built. The world honored one smiled. So, really, there's practice to be done at every point, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the same practice, but approaching life in this way is something that practicing Zen has taught me from experience. Uh, just works better. It's easier to see the point of Buddhist practice when I'm doing it, in this way or in any other way. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. So thank you very much for your kind attention. And please chime in with comments or questions or your own theories on whether machines are sentient. Yeah, Mike.
Thank you for your talk, Chris. First comment is it's kind of spooky thanking a robot, but but I like the part about where you're just basically showing gratitude to everything in life. And whether it's sentient or not is unimportant. It's the whole idea is that you show kindness and gratitude to a tree that shades you on a hot day, or a stream of cold water you encounter on a hike, or whatever. But thanking a robot, I don't know about that yet. That's kind of scary. But thank you very much.
Well, just like with the tree, it doesn't necessarily have to be directed towards the tree in a way that the tree might be receiving it, but what is happening is um, generating or cultivating gratitude because of the experience with the tree. That helps along the transformation. If it's safe to say we're transforming because of our practice. And I do think it is. Jane.
Thank you, Chris. It's a nice talk. I think gratitude is a really important practice, and it's one that I I think if you come to a robot and you say thank you to it, what I think you're saying is thank you to yourself as a robot.
Mm.
If you thank a tree, you're thanking yourself as a tree. So I don't see a difference between thanking a robot and thanking a tree as yourself. Just
Because everywhere we go, we meet it, and it is me.
wherever you are, yeah. But I think it would help a lot if you always had that mental frame, of gratitude everywhere. I think I was just sitting here listening what you were saying, and I had the image. I think grass is like our mascot. Like grass is beautiful because no matter what the conditions, it will grow. So even if you were a single little blade of grass, you would be thanking all the other little blades for supporting you. So, yeah.
I remembered her name, Leslie James. That was it. I'm sorry for forgetting. What do you think of the Dogon quote? Do you think that is relevant to the theme of the talk?
I do. I do very much. It's one that I like very much also. The grass and the trees are always teaching is definitely true, I think.
That's what I should have looked up, was the insentient preach the Dharma. All right, next time.
Anyway, thank you, Chris. It's a very nice talk. Keep practicing gratitude everywhere.
Thank you for the encouragement. Because sometimes I forget. Well, yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I know you can't see me, but I'm across from Peter and Jane. This techno gratitude has a wonderful idea, because I think if we can have gratitude for these things we create, things we make, and that will quite possibly infuse itself into our reflections. That's what they are. They're reflections of us. And I think the more let's say, bots we have that are reflecting our gratitude, we can't go wrong.
Mm. I think that if you know, the corporate types in their boardrooms with the graphs and, you know, their concern for stockholders were grateful for their customers, like genuinely grateful, or if they were grateful for what they're able to accomplish, maybe they would feel, you know, less need to, you know, maximize profits or something, and everyone would be better off. Man, I don't know about that. I don't think about that more. Yay, Rachel. Me.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed that a great deal. And I'm reminded of, you might have been too little, I'm not certain, pet rocks. There was an enormous craze for pet rocks. And I often have thought, I wondered if anyone grew up, if that was helpful for them to look out the window and look at um, the mountain across instead of leveling it, think of it as a pile of my pet rocks. I mean, if that's the only way to approach oneness, I'll take a pet rock. Um, I, know, I met a friend, and she was telling me about a relative, anyway, a young boy who's autistic and very bright. But and he loves her, but when he visits, he has to sit down and he can only talk with his computer to her. In other words, that's how he will communicate, even if he's in the same room.
Sorry, how is he communicating? I didn't hear that part.
He has like an iPhone, and it's like a small computer, and that's how he communicates. I'm just reminded of that with your talk and what Jane said, which is for him, it's living. And, you know, I don't need a computer, although I'm staring at all of you on a screen. Uh, but there's something liminal ab- ab- about relational understanding, the surface, and then liminal. And, um, you know, that goes without saying. Sometimes, okay, I'm going to bring you all the way with this one. Sometimes I wonder if there's a whole dialogue going on between anyone and the tree in front of the rock, but it's underneath their consciousness. You know, it's like we're talking to the tree and we don't even know we're talking to the tree. And I bet Jane might have something to say about that. Um, but
I've
I,
often thought trees, you know, shaking in the breeze at night when outside your window when you hear them just rustling and stuff. I think they're always chittering a little bit between themselves.
see. um, anyway, I thank you, Jane, because I didn't dare say that. But even walking sometimes, or in Zazen, it's like hearing sounds before you identify them, and you can finally really hear. Anyway, thanks a lot for your talk.
You are welcome. Yeah, I think there's a documentary called like The Secret Life of Trees or something, and trees communicate with each other. At first I thought, and maybe this is true still, that what you were getting to is like below what we typically limit by calling consciousness, where there's this separation feeling, that actually the consciousness that sort of manifests in this way is also manifesting deeper, where we're not necessarily conscious in the same way we're conscious of what we're seeing or hearing or whatnot or thinking. And that when you get low enough, actually, well, you don't have to get low, but bear with me for a second. Low enough is the same pool of consciousness, so to speak, that So we are interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh calls it, all the time, actually, and that's kind of a conversation of its own. And on the rock thing, I remember, I think my parents might have had one still from the craze, but there was a pet rock at some point present in my childhood. And one thing that I thought was cool, I only went to Zen Center of San Diego one time when Ezra and I think Elizabeth were running it, but they didn't have a Buddha statue on their altar. They had a rock. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't ever want to set up an altar with a rock. Well, no, okay, I don't want to say ever. I like having a statue on my altar, but I still thought that was cool. Instead of a pet rock, it's a Buddha rock. And well, if there was something else I was going to say, it's lost. That's okay.
You
Steve?
could put on it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thank you for your talk. It's always interesting.
I try to keep it interesting.
I never really thought, and we have plenty of rocks out here, and I never really considered that. But one thing that has been interesting for me is I've always been, as a kid, we always caught lizards and snakes and stuff. And we probably scared the hell out of them while we were catching them, even though we let them go. It was kind of like, just the thing to do. But as I'm older and out here, there are so many varieties of lizards and birds that are in our area. And when I'm looking around and you make eye contact with a lizard that is scared and scurrying away, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to harm you. And it's interesting to have that vibe where you almost feel as, even if you don't speak, you can communicate with animals in a sense. Although I think I know what my cat wants all the time, but she knows what she wants. I don't always hit the mark on that. But yeah, I'll have to look into the rock. Now, grass and trees, I always thought, when the wind blows, it brings them to life, and sitting in a meadow with a bunch of grass as the wind's shifting is very interesting. But out here, the tumbleweeds come alive, and sometimes they run right in front of your car and you hit them. And I've never apologized, but I guess I will start. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember. So for one thing, with animals, I'm always like walking around, and if I happen to make contact with one of the neighborhood crows, for example, I always say hi. Sometimes I'll be like, "I love you, man," because I kind of have a secret wish to make friends with the crows. I've heard that that's possible. I haven't yet, offered them food, but that's sort of on my to-do list. Or like dogs, I'll walk by and some dog will bark me, and I'll just like look at it and just very sincerely say, "I love you." And even if the dog doesn't understand it in its way and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna stop barking at him," because whatever. I still believe that there's some kind of transference, I guess, that on some level, even if the dog's unconscious of it, dog knows that I said something nice to it, and it's gonna keep barking because that's just its nature and that's just what it does. But yeah, I don't know, and it doesn't matter whether that's true or not, because again, cultivating this benevolence is the point, more than understanding in an animal's mind that I mean it goodwill or not. And I remember what I was going to say earlier. So the pet rock thing kind of died out, but then around fourth, fifth, or sixth grade, there was a craze amongst my generation called Tamagotchis, or nano pets, whereas this little like digital thing with just a very simple liquid crystal display face about yay big, and there was a few buttons on it, and it was like a game sort of, but more like one of those like baby simulators where essentially you had to like throughout the day it would chirp at you and need to be fed, and you'd have to press the buttons to feed it. And so all these kids, all the teachers had to like say, "Hey, you can't bring those in the classroom anymore because it was too much of a distraction." They'd be trying to teach us math and be like, "I have to feed my Tamagotchi." Boop, boop, boop. I thought that was pretty funny. There's also a book I remember that you reminded me of, Steve and Rachel. Uh, it was like this donkey. I don't remember why he was sad, but he went out to a field and there was a magic pebble. And he was touching the magic pebble and he wished to become a rock. And he did, but now he was just a rock, and this magic pebble was out of his reach, and he couldn't wish to become a donkey again. And you know, it rained, and then the days passed and whatnot. And yeah, I just remember thinking, like, what would it be like to be a rock? Could I be a rock? What would, you know, that was pretty trippy for me as a kid. Eventually, his mom came out to the spot, and she liked the rock or something, but didn't realize it was her son, and just by accident wished that she had her son back, and she was touching the magic pebble at the time, and her son came back, and it was very sweet. But yeah. Mike, I saw you raised your hand again.
I just wanted to say I'm just glad to find out I'm not the only one that talks to the animals in my neighborhood. My neighbors give me weird looks, but that's okay. I think they understand because birds aren't afraid of me anymore. The rabbits aren't afraid of me anymore and stuff. So it's like, I talk to them and people think I'm crazy. Well, hey, I guess that's the way it is.
So you're saying it works, that the animals aren't afraid of you?
Yeah, but you can't prove it to people that don't believe in it.
Yeah. Good. I'm gonna buy some like kiwi or steak or something and see if the crows like that. You, Jane.
Well, I thought I'd add a little something to the animal talk because Peter and I were watching this really great story. I forget the name of it on TV about. I can't think of the name right now. About these teenagers who are all part of, I forget what tribe, a tribe of Indians that were off a reservation or on a reservation, and these were the teenagers who were beginning to experience life in all kinds of interesting ways. And one of them was when this young woman, she's about 16, went to a party, and she was telling everybody that she was sure her father, who had died not long before, was going to come back to see her because one of the Indians there had mentioned that. And while she's talking to all these friends, a coyote comes up on the lawn, and she runs out and says, "Dad, you're here." She throws out her arms, and the coyote jumps on her, bites her.
Oh no.
And so the point was that if you are going to welcome the animals, be careful which ones you welcome.
I think that I think that's a good place to stop. So thank you again for your comments and input and for being here, and thank you for talking to animals with me. Please take very good care of yourselves, and let's do service.